The Dauntless was a monstrosity. A starship that looked more like a scrapyard stitched together by desperation than a vessel designed for war. Its hull gleamed unevenly, a mismatched patchwork of metals salvaged from destroyed battleships, derelict stations, and ancient exploratory craft. Pipes jutted out where smooth lines should have been, and its engines roared with the dissonance of technologies that had no business functioning together. The ship didn't glide through space. It stumbled, sputtered, yet somehow never faltered. It wasn't just the ship that was wrong. The crew reflected its cobbled-together nature. They were misfits, rejects, people written off by society or the military, too unorthodox or reckless to fit into proper chains of command. Commander Elise Grant, scarred both physically and emotionally from a dozen failed missions, carried a grim determination that bordered on obsession. Her second-in-command, Rainer Voss, was a disgraced engineer who'd been exiled from the Terran Coalition for unapproved experiments. The rest of the crew followed a similar pattern: criminals, inventors, and survivors, each with a story of failure or exile that brought them here. But none of that mattered. They were all humanity had left. The war had reached a tipping point. The alien coalition, a united front of 5 species bound by shared contempt for humanity, had pushed the Terran forces to the brink of extinction. Humanity's fleets were scattered, its colonies burned, its leaders pleading for ceasefires that never came. The Dauntless wasn't built to win. It was built to buy time. Time for humanity to regroup, to cling to the smallest hope of survival. No one believed the ship would work. The experimental core, at its heart, was an unproven energy source, something cobbled together in secret by rogue scientists and desperate military engineers. It wasn't a marvel of human innovation. It was a gamble. The core pulsed unpredictably, emitting waves of energy that warped sensors and sometimes reality itself. "This thing will either save us or kill us," Rainer had said during the ship's shaky launch. No one argued with him. As the ship floated in the void, its mismatched panels reflecting the faint glow of distant stars, the crew prepared for the impossible. The mission was straightforward in theory but suicidal in practice: breach the alien coalition's command fleet and disable their flagship, the Ascendant Void. The odds were absurdly against them. The coalition's technology was centuries ahead of humanity's best, and their armada was a display of precision engineering and overwhelming firepower. The Dauntless? It didn't even have proper shields, just a patchy energy grid that worked more often than not. Yet, as the crew sat in the dimly lit bridge, waiting for the signal to engage, no one spoke of failure. This wasn't about survival anymore. This was about defiance. The Dauntless was wrong in every way, but it existed, and it carried the last vestiges of humanity's fight. The ship creaked ominously as the core surged again, casting a pale blue glow through the bridge. Elise glanced at her crew. No speeches, no reassurances, just a curt nod. They understood. The Dauntless rumbled forward, every part of it screaming in protest. It was ugly. It was broken. But it was unyielding. The alien blockade materialized like a solid wall, an impenetrable fortress of warships designed to annihilate anything that dared to approach. The Dauntless was surrounded on all sides, its ragged hull an affront to the sleek, unblemished designs of the coalition vessels. The aliens did not wait. A storm of energy beams, plasma bolts, and missile salvos surged toward the ship, relentless tide of destruction that no vessel should have survived. The Dauntless endured. As the first volley struck, the ship's experimental core flared violently, releasing an unpredictable wave of energy. Shields that shouldn't have been able to hold absorbed the brunt of the assault, but the energy distorted space around the ship, scattering some of the attacks into random directions. To the aliens, it looked like chaos. To the crew of the Dauntless, it was nothing short of a miracle. The crew fought to keep the ship alive, their frantic efforts bordering on desperation. Sparks rained down from exposed wiring as consoles overloaded, and the bridge was filled with the overlapping sounds of alarms and shouted commands. Rainer cursed under his breath as he rerouted failing systems, pushing the core beyond its limits. It wasn't sustainable and everyone knew it, but there was no other option. The Dauntless counterattacked with ferocity that belied its crude construction. Its weapons fired in erratic bursts, guided by the chaotic pulses of its core. Alien ships struggled to respond as their targeting systems were disrupted by the unpredictable energy fields surrounding the human ship. Beams of plasma struck empty space, while missiles veered off course or detonated prematurely. But the core's power wasn't just affecting the enemy, it was changing the Dauntless itself. Space around the ship began to ripple, faint distortions bending light and warping the perception of distance. The Coalition fleet hesitated as their instruments failed to make sense of what they were seeing. To them, the Dauntless wasn't just a ship anymore, it was something unnatural, something beyond their comprehension. Inside the ship, the crew felt the effects too. Time seemed to stretch and compress in strange ways, seconds feeling like minutes one moment and passing in a blur the next. The hum of the core grew louder, a low, resonating sound that seemed to fill the entire ship. Elise tightened her grip on the command console, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Keep moving. Whatever this is, use it." The Dauntless pushed forward, diving into the heart of the alien fleet. Ships that had once seemed invincible now scrambled to reposition, their movements disorganized and frantic. The core pulsed again, this time with a surge of energy so powerful it sent shockwaves through space. Smaller alien ships were thrown off course, colliding with one another or spiraling out of control. The crew couldn't explain what was happening, but they didn't need to. All that mattered was that the ship was still moving, still fighting. The aliens, so used to overwhelming their enemies with precision and firepower, found themselves on the defensive. The Dauntless was defying logic, defying reality, and in doing so, it had become unstoppable. As the ship barreled toward the Coalition's flagship, the Ascendant Void, it became clear that this wasn't just a battle anymore. It was a statement. The Dauntless wasn't a mistake. It was humanity's refusal to surrender made manifest, a broken, chaotic thing that refused to die. And nothing the aliens did could stop it.